Updating Statutes for the Environmental Legal Research course at Boston College Law School. When your research involves a statute, one of the first things you need to do is think about whether you are looking for the laws in effect in the past or regulating future behavior. Because laws change, you need to be sure you're looking at the law as it actually is now or at the time of relevant actions. When legislatures make changes to the law, there is often a delay in incorporating the most recent changes to the statutory code. When you are advising a client about future compliance with statutory requirements, you will want the most recent version of the statute, and it may even be necessary for you to keep an eye on pending legislation. But if you are researching the law related to something that happened in the past, you need to be sure you're looking at the version of the statute that was in effect at the relevant time. Whether you're using a print code or an online version, the first step in verifying that you are looking at a current law is to check the currency statement of the code you are using. Deluxe services like Lexis and Westlaw show their currency statements on every page of the code. Here we can see at the top of this and every statute on Lexis is the statement of how up-to-date this code is. This is not the date of this particular section, it is the statement of how many of the session laws have been incorporated into the code. That is why this is stated as current through Public Law 11647, approved August 21, 2019. It's not that 42 U.S.C. section 5553 was approved on August 21, 2019. It is Public Law 11647, which names a post office and has nothing to do with solar energy, that was approved that day. Westlaw makes you work a little harder to find out how current the code you are working with is. At the top of each statute is a link to the bottom of the document. Here we see that the U.S. Code on Westlaw on the day I made these slides was current through Public Law 11550. On the screen it is also easy to see that the latest change to 42 U.S.C. 5553 as it reads here was in October of 1974. To find the currency of the U.S. Code on Bloomberg Law, you need to first click on the General Info link. This code is current through Public Law 116-53, which was signed into law on August 23, 2019. Again, the currency of the code is measured in terms of the latest session law that has been incorporated into this topical arrangement of statutes. Here's the currency statement for the U.S. Code from the Office of the Law Revision Council, the people who actually compile the code. This version of the code, the day I made this, was current through Public Law 11638, August 2nd, 2019. This page also states that each section has a currency date at the top and will alert the user to any pending changes. This is how 42 U.S.C. section 5553 appeared on the Office of the Law Revision Council site on August 28, 2019. It states that this code section is the one in effect on August 27, 2019. Some public websites can be a little more difficult to use. For example, the Massachusetts legislature does not include a statement of how up-to-date the code is on every page, but only places that information on the general law's front page. Near the bottom of the page is the statement, "This site is periodically updated to reflect any changes made to the general laws. This site includes all amendments to the general laws passed before July 20th, 2019. Luckily, it directs us to the next step in updating a code. For laws enacted since that time, see the 2019 session laws." Linking to those session laws, we can scan the laws not yet incorporated into the code to see if there are any newer statutes on the subject we are researching. By the way, not every law takes effect on being signed by the executive. In Massachusetts, many statutes have an effective date in the text of the statute itself, and a bill that does not have an effective date will be effective 90 days after it was signed by the governor. Premium services such as Lexis and Westlaw provide additional indications that the statute has recently changed or is about to change. Lexis uses a yield sign to indicate pending legislation that could affect this code section, and a red stop sign may indicate the need to look further to see if a statute is valid law. This red flag on Westlaw indicates that this statute has been amended or repealed by a session law that has not yet been incorporated into this code. Westlaw uses a yellow flag to indicate proposed legislation that could amend or repeal a statute. These warning signs and flags are your cue to do further research into the future or validity of the statute. They don't tell you the extent of the change or potential change to the statute, just that it exists. You need to read the case or statute to determine whether or not it affects your use of that statute. The Office of Law Revision Counsel warns the reader of pending updates that must be checked on the page where the text of the statutory section appears. The Office of the Law Revision Counsel also has tables indicating which code sections will be affected by recently enacted public laws, as well as historical classification tables that detail the effects of specific session laws on the U.S. Code. When dealing with past actions, you need to find out if the law you are looking at was the same as the law that was in effect at the time of the action in question. On Westlaw, you can link back to prior versions of the law as it was back until 1966, and also compare prior versions of a statute to identify the language that has changed between versions. Some prior versions have specific dates they were in effect. For others, you may need to read the actual amendments, since not all parts of the law took effect at the same time. Lexis has annual archived U.S. Code versions back to 2005. Link to them from the About This Document box on the right of the case. Click into the text of the code section during the year in question. You can also check the history of the statute to find out exactly when changes were made to a code section. This section is known as the credits on Westlaw. Statutes too old to be on Lexis or Westlaw can be found in Hein Online, which has PDF versions of every edition and supplement of the U.S. Code published, as well as a full run of statutes at large. It also contains the session laws of the 50 states and a number of historical state codes.